Hello and welcome to Zaita Talk. Thank you for joining me. I am Paigham Mustafa, and this is where I speak about some of the things that draw my attention. The difference between this and other such podcasts is that I take a look from a Quranic perspective, because it is only when Islam is seen through the unique prism of the Quran alone that it raises the measure of human endeavour. I am an author, and I've been researching and studying the Quran since 1988 and spent 2 years writing an exposition of this book. This rendition is different in a way that others are not. As you listen to my talks, you will get to know how and why, but primarily my contention is that what people believe to be in the Quran and what it actually says are two different things. I ask you not to let fear and hate prevent you from knowing the truth. Whatever your belief, the Quran is a compelling read. It's worth mentioning that if you're interested in reading my book, then it is available from Amazon. Today I'm going to talk about three different but connected topics. This will include the touchy subject of ex-Muslims, and I will ask the question whether this is the right term for them. I will also be speaking about disbelievers and why the Quran decrees Muslims to deal with them harshly. If you are on Twitter and other social media, you will see a tide of people disparaging Islam. They say that this is a religion that is violent and advocates the killing of people for no reason other than they do not believe in Islam. I have already explained in a previous talk the difference between religion and Islam. They are two entirely different things. As for the violence aspect, I will be talking about it today. If you like this podcast, then please share it and add me as your friend on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. If you have any questions, please leave it on as a comment and I will do my best to answer it. But first, I want to talk about the grossly misunderstood description of Mushrik, the word usually said to mean infidels. This term is poorly understood and continues to raise its monstrous head, and accusations that the Quran decrees that mushriks should be killed on sight. So, does the Quran incite violence against infidels? Well, relentlessly seeking faults with Islam, people with strong feelings against Islam say the problem is that according to the Quran, polytheism, or mushriks, is a greater sin than murder, and it provokes Muslims to kill disbelievers and apostates. Apart from the fact that there is no concept of sin in the Quran, to translate the word mushrik as polytheist or infidel is like calling a gang of marauding Vikings a group of beach revelers. A mushrik is a person who gives someone or an organization or a body authority to equal or rival God. This means obeying laws that conflict with the universal permanent values of the Quran, those values that develop and progress the welfare of mankind. A mushrik is an active enemy, a traitor, and a person who commits high treason and seeks to destroy the peace and security of a community or a nation. Traitors may no longer be hanged in Britain, but the last hanging in 1946 was not exactly a million years ago. Under English law, even someone having sex with the king's wife or the wife of an heir was considered to be a traitor. Giving help of any sort to the enemy of the crown is still regarded as treason. Giving an enemy comfort is treason. Being a Catholic priest was treasonous, and all treason was punishable by death. Controversially, in 2015, the then British Prime Minister David Cameron authorised the killing of 2 British men in Syria, who in the government believed were a threat to the United Kingdom. In Philadelphia, USA, in 1985, police bombed a house inhabited by an African-American liberation group. They destroyed the area, devastating the lives of 250 people, including 5 children, all because they were believed to be a threat to the state authority. So why is it so strange when the Quran advocates that traitors who actively fight against law-abiding citizens and threaten their peace and security should be killed? Why is it thought too brutal when the Quran decrees to kill terrorists? Every community and every nation defends itself against those who threaten their way of life, but it is in the Quran that aggression is forbidden. In the Quran, the killing and besieging is only of the traitors who are enemies and actively fighting a war against Muslims. The Quran advocates protection and safe passage for non-combatant mushrik people who seek help, and there is not a hint of forced conversion to be a Muslim. Simply because Islam is a social order, citizens living under it would be subject to the laws of that system, the laws of God as stated in the Quran. Anyone who commits treachery would be dealt with appropriately, as they would be in any country. Apostasy is to abandon one's faith or religion. Since Islam is not a religion, there is no act of apostasy described in the Quran. There is freedom to believe, but not the freedom to destruct peace and create turmoil. And that is true justice. And now the second question that arises about disbelievers. Why does the Quran dictate harshness against them? Belligerent detractors of Islam often cite verses of the Quran that command strictness and severity against disbelievers, or those who go against the will of Allah. First of all, Allah is a misnomer. It is not a name for a Muslim God, but simply means in Arabic the one God. Christian Arabs also use Allah for God, so using Allah is not exclusive to Muslims. In English, we have many Arabic words in common use: sugar, alcohol, chemistry, etc., as well as many words borrowed from other languages. So there is nothing wrong in using Allah to describe God, because new words and richness add richness to any language. The will of God, or the will of Allah, are the universal permanent values and absolute laws found in the Quran. These are unchanging principles for changing times. These are the core values all people need to develop, because when individuals are good, then unfailingly society is also good. We say disbeliever, but disbeliever in what? The Arabic word kafir has simply been translated as disbeliever, but it really means much more than that. It means a disbeliever or rejecter, and the underlining meaning is the one who covers the truth. The kafir is also a person who openly rejects, denies, or conceals the truth. In this case, the truth of the Quran's guidance. The translated words still do not do justice to the original Arabic, because it does not convey what the kafir really rejects or disbelieves. So, what does he or she actually reject? This rejection includes, but is not limited to, the truth, justice, sincerity, and the helping of the needy. He rejects the permanent values and the absolute laws that progress individuals and societies. And most importantly, the disbeliever rejects accountability to himself or herself, and ultimately to God. An individual who openly refuses to accept the things that develop the human personality and rejects the Quran as guidance is a kafir, a disbeliever. Furthermore, the rejection is in fact the refusal to accept values that advance society, the values that God decrees in the Quran. For example, to fill one's commitments with the sincerity, to advocate good and to stop evil, strive against oppression and injustice, to promote fair trade and social welfare, to honor parents and to stop the killing of children, and also the ultimate accountability to God. These are just some of the values found in the Quran that, when applied, eradicate social ills. It is these permanent values and absolute laws that move forward the procession of life, to develop society and make yourself fit for the life yet to come. It is these values and laws that the kafir and the disbeliever rejects. So to be harsh against the disbelievers is to call to account those who reject the things that progress society. And surely this is nothing that any decent citizen can object to. Anyway, now we know what a Mushrik and a disbeliever are, but what is an ex-Muslim? There has been a trend for some time now for people born into traditionally Sunni and Shia families who openly reject their faith and call themselves ex-Muslim. Why some people who totally reject Islam want to tag themselves with something they don't believe, I really don't understand. But is this a good description of someone who no longer wants to be part of Islam? Apostate is someone who abandons one's faith, but since the Quran never describes Islam as a religion and offers freedom of belief, so is an ex-Muslim a fitting label for someone who rejects Islam? I think before you can understand what an ex-Muslim is, you need to define what a Muslim is. The word Muslim is often taken as a label or a title of a person who professes to have accepted Islam or is born into a family of professed Muslims. Whether they know anything about Islam or not is rarely, if ever, questioned. However, as long as they declare their belief in the one God and Muhammad as his messenger, then without query they are considered to be Muslim. But contrary to popular belief, this does not make them Muslim. Even if they participate in festivals normally associated with Islam, practice some rituals such as prayer and fasting, or have performed a pilgrimage to Mecca, none of these things make anyone Muslim. A Muslim, with a small m, is simply someone who accepts the guidance in the Quran and its values and implements them in his or her life. These are the values that harmonize people and lead individuals to become humanitarians, the true benefactors of mankind. So what are these values? Well, the key theme that runs throughout the Quran is a social equity, because this is the foundation of a fair and just society, and it creates an environment in which individuals can realize their full potential. This is all underpinned by each person's accountability for their own actions. However, detractors of Islam and those who call themselves ex-Muslims see the traditional so-called Muslim society, in all probability the society in which they grew up in, behave in a noxious manner with its misogyny, violence and other absurdities, and they mistakenly think this is Islam. Reading a poorly translated Quran further confirms their belief, and with this distorted picture they reject Islam, when it is a religion's masquerading as Islam that they should have rejected. Without understanding the Quran proper, they become ex-Muslim, or for want of a better description, ex-humanitarian. It is an odd way to describe yourself, especially if you have given this name to yourself as a symbol of pride, in the mistaken belief that it shows your rebellion against all that is evil, when in fact the complete opposite is true. In reality, there is no such creature as an ex-Muslim. Such people were never Muslim in the first place. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this talk, please like and share this and subscribe. Goodbye for now.